They took her from me. Team Rocket killed my mother, and tonight I begin the journey to uncover why. You will see the night they came, the moment everything ended, and the instant I reached for what they left behind. Before you can understand why I wear it, you have to know the world we had before they tore it apart. Before the skull, before the silence, there was laughter in our cave. Not the kind of laughter humans make, but the soft, breathy chuffs my mother gave when I stumbled or tripped. I can still feel the cool grit of stone under my feet as we stepped out in the early light, her stride slow and steady, mine skipping to keep up. We searched for berries together, her nose pushing into the shrubs while I peeled back leaves with clumsy claws. Sometimes she'd nudge a branch so the ripe ones would drop toward me, letting me believe I'd found them myself. Bay, when the wind outside hissed through the rocks at night, she was hum. It was a low, steady sound that filled the den like a blanket, something I could feel through my ribs as I curled against her side. Her breathing told me we were safe, each slow rise and fall better than any walls. Bay, she taught me to swing a bone long before I knew it could be a weapon. We played near the mouth of the den, her showing me how to pivot and let the weight carry the swing. I remember one wild miss, my arms overbalanced, the bone skidding, and her catching it mid-fall with a calm flick of her hand. My frustration lasted only until she crouched beside me to mimic the move again, patient as ever. Back then it was nothing more than a game. Only home lay deep in the crags, far enough that pale dust masked our scent. The cliffs folded overhead, hiding the sky until you reached the edge of the bend, and even then only a narrow stretch of horizon peeked through. The air smelled of stone and dry grass. The outside world felt like a far-off story, a place I imagined but never touched. Sometimes, in the middle of play or foraging, my mother would freeze. Her head lifted, her body stilled as though carved from the rock. I'd follow her gaze into emptiness, just the faint rumble of something distant, or a quick, sharp sound that made her ears twitch. I didn't know why then, only that I should stay quiet until she moved again. There were stories among wild Pokémon of humans who hunted for what they called parts or fossils. They said Marowak mothers would fight to the end for their young, and that sometimes the bones they carried weren't taken from the ground but from the still warm bodies of kin. I didn't think much about it. Those hunters were others' worry, not ours. And yet, in rare moments, I wondered if anyone could ever reach us here. The crags cut the eyes and throat of strangers. Without knowing the streams, you'd dry out or turn back long before finding our hollow. It felt impossible, though my mother's stillness at those strange sounds told me she knew otherwise. I thought danger was too far away to touch us. I didn't see it moving inch by inch across the land toward our hidden den. That night I learned how wrong I was. I woke to the sound of metal and voices that didn't belong. At first it made no sense. The night should have been still, with only the soft scrape of wind on the rock face outside. But beyond the mouth of the cave, something heavy clinked, then a sharp word in a tone I had never heard from my mother. Lights cut into the dark, thin, cold beams sweeping across the stone. They moved slow, then snapped to stillness. My eyes burned. I rubbed at them, but the wrongness of that light kept me awake. My mother was on her feet, head high, body angled forward, the way she stood when danger was near. She growled low, half warning, half command, and nudged me back with her tail. I didn't know why, but the quick, precise way she moved left no space to question her. The noises outside sped up. Metal clinks became the sharp snap of something closing. More voices overlapped, clipped and sure. Another beam swept over the entrance, and then two more crossed above it, moving as one. Shadows passed through the glare, tall, thin, arms outstretched. Something scraped across stone. A rope dragged, stopped, pulled tight. From outside came a sharp chemical scent, stinging my nose and throat. My mother's claws dug into the cave floor. The entrance was full of them now. In the distance, other cries, short, panicked, from Pokémon caught before they could flee. The men spoke flatly, bored, trading words I barely knew. Rare bones, worth, fossil price, and once, low and certain, a name, Team Rocket. My mother's ears pinned at each sound. She stepped in front of me, her back curved, bone club raised high enough to touch the low ceiling. Her tail pushed me until my shell scraped the far wall. Dust thickened the air. A shout, then a blinding white flash. No thunder, just a sharp crack that rattled in my chest and the sudden heat of scorched rock against my face. My mother roared. The next moments broke apart. A net whistled past. Boots pounded the stone. Another flash split the dark. I coughed. Stone dust filled my mouth. Shapes moved too fast to follow, light sparking off gloves and metal hooks. My mother's voice was deep, defiant, and then it tore into a cry I had never heard before. Through smoke, I saw her silhouette twist, blocking a strike meant for me. The blow landed. The sound was solid, final. Her body reeled from it. She dropped to one knee, still holding the club between me and them. Another impact sent her sideways. The dust swallowed her before I could see her face. The men didn't hesitate. They moved past, quick and certain, their boots grinding grit into the stone. Ropes tightened around something behind me. The air stank of smoke and that sharp chemical sting. My ears rang. The cave seemed too quiet and too loud at the same time. Breathing felt strange, shallow, hollow. Boots scraped away into the night. Their lights vanished one by one. The dark returned, but it wasn't the same. When the dust thinned, she was gone, and something else waited in her place. The air was wrong, heavy, carrying the sting of chemicals that scraped the inside of my nose. Silence pressed in from every side as I pulled myself up from the wall. I called for her, first softly, then louder, each cry bouncing back without her voice. The ashes and shadows seemed to pull closer, closing out what little light there was. The scents I knew, dry rock, faint moss, our bedding's musk, were drowned. All that was left was the sour edge of fear clinging to the stone. My legs shook as I stepped forward. Grit shifted under my feet, each scrape sounding sharp in the quiet. I searched the corners where she might appear, but every hollow was empty. Through the cave mouth, far downslope, shapes moved against the dim. Humans bent under bulging sacks. Some bundles shifted weakly, others didn't move at all. Their voices carried faintly, cut with the jangle of their gear. My mouth opened to call her, but nothing came out. I went to the spot where she had stood last. The dust cleared just enough for me to see a small, pale curve on the stone. Not random, not broken, too smooth, too perfect. It was her skull. I knew it the moment my claws touched the cool surface, felt the clean lines stripped bare in a way only human hands could do. The chill of it climbed into my chest, hollowing me out before I could breathe again. I couldn't let go. My arms closed around it, pulling it to me until the edge pressed against my jaw. The stories said young Cubone wore their mother's skull when she was gone. I understood now, not as a lesson, but as the only way to hold on when there was nothing else left. I lifted it. The weight settled over me, heavier than I thought it would be. The world narrowed, framed through the hollows of her eyes. My own breath filled the space inside, soft and close, a sound no one else could hear. The den wasn't home anymore, but with her bone against me, the emptiness felt less sharp. From that moment on, it stayed with me, not just as armor, but as the part of my body that had been stolen away. And under its weight, something else began to take shape. I couldn't save her, but I could make sure they never did this again. In the days after, I stopped curling into the dark to hide from the light outside. Fear stayed, but it no longer froze me. I began to watch instead, marking every sound that reached the crags, tracking which way the echoes bent around stone, and fixing the distant outlines of humans in my mind. Sometimes they moved along dry stream beds, sometimes they rested under the twisted shade of old trees. When they appeared, I kept far back. My steps fell on packed places where the ground wouldn't shift, and I timed each move to the wind so claw on rock was lost in its rush. If one stopped, I stopped. If they turned, I slipped behind cover. I learned their pace, the tilt of their heads when they scanned the ground ahead. Alone, I changed how I held the bone. I swung at loose stones, not to break them, but to feel how the weight carried through each arc. I struck at thin branches, letting the rebound guide my grip. Between the larger rocks near the den mouth, I practiced moving from one cover to the next, keeping low until it became as natural as breathing. The skull over my head did more than hide my face. No one could see the tightness in my jaw or the wet lines that had dried beneath. Strangers seemed to hesitate at the hollow eyes, unsure if I was looking at them or past them. It gave me space I would not have been offered without it, space to think and listen without interference. Wild Pokémon carried whispers the way wind carries smoke. A zigzagoon told of humans in black with a red mark on their chests. A Rattata spoke the name Rocket like it wanted it out of its mouth. I knew that name. I had seen the mark before, and through the scattered stories I understood what happened to us was happening elsewhere. It wasn't an accident or a single raid. The same shapes of violence played out in grasslands and forests, over mountains, and in plains I'd never seen. Different prey, same light, same sacks, same absence left behind. The thought didn't burn hot. It settled cold. This was not about finding one face or one voice. Those could change. This was about breaking something larger. Something that moved like a shadow from place to place. I told no one. There was no one to hear it. But the vow settled in me all the same. Not revenge for one loss, but the end of a path that let it happen at all. Every time my breath filled the space between my face and hers, every time my grip found its place on the bone, it pressed deeper. When the time came, I left the crags behind. The skull sat firm, her gaze fixed forward through mine. I stepped onto the open stretch for the first time, the wide world waiting, and the oath silent but unshakable. The skull is more than the sign of what I lost. It is armor, it is memory, it is defiance against those who would strip life down to pieces and call it profit. They think no one will stand in their way. But I have seen what they leave behind, and I carry the proof on my head. My steps will take me to the places they believe are empty, and I will be there before they know it. Tell me in the comments if you want to follow Cubone's journey versus Team Rocket, or if you want other stories like this. We create content for you, and this was an ambitious project. Let us know what you think. We will not take offense if you don't like it, we promise.